So before I get any further with internal security, let me tell you a story, since I am at the IIT Kharagpur. So this story is about some engineering students from a famous IIT in some place. You can imagine which place it is. I don't want to say it is from Kharagpur. Who actually was out on a field trip, and the field tasking was to learn to carry out survey using various survey instruments like the theodolite and so on. So they were taken. It was a fairly high hillock. They had set up their instruments. They were organizing themselves to get on to the job. Their instructors or this thing had briefed them. When there was a village close by, so some very curious young men from the village sort of went there and started watching these guys. And these people were actually getting into action. And then one of them couldn't help himself. So he approached these students and asked them, "Could you please tell us, what are you doing?" So the hotty-totty IIT guy looked at this rustic group with certain haughtiness which comes naturally and said, "You don't understand it, forget about it. You keep watching." So they kept watching. After some time, they could not sort of hold on to their curiosity, so another guy also approached and said, "Please tell us what you're doing." So then one guy said, "We belong to that famous college in that famous place. We have come here, we're doing survey, we've got all these instruments, theodolite and all, which you guys will not understand. And we are trying to actually see that if we have to plan a road across this hillock, which is the best way to actually plan it?" And he explained something called what is the optimum slope and so on. So after some time, one guy went and told them, "Oh, if you want to plan this, then we have got a better method." Now, obviously, the engineering students had to take this challenge. "Okay, tell us. Oh, if we have to plan a road like this, what you guys are doing, then we'll get hold of a bag of white powder, chalk. Then we'll get hold of a stick. Then we'll get hold of a donkey. Then we'll put the bag on the donkey. Then we will take the donkey to the foot of this hill. Then we'll make a hole in the sack. Then we will hit the donkey, and the donkey will find the optimum slope." So, I mean, you can imagine that if you and me were in their place, what would they feel? Because there was a certain rustic, indigenous idea to this, which cannot be possibly be ignored. So one of the smart students said, "Okay, what will you do if you don't have a donkey?" So those guys were, till one guy got up and said, "Oh, if we don't have a donkey, we'll go looking for an engineer." So after this, you can shoot the general, because obviously this sort of generals requires to be shot. But I'm telling you this story for a simple reason. Suppose, imagine that this is a story concocted by a fertile brain of a 72-year-old wanting to actually crack a joke at the beginning of a talk. And let's say this story travels down in time, mostly carried through lips. Somebody then writes about it and changes it. You think that this story will remain in its original way over a course of time? Very difficult. There will be many changes. There will be many more nuances. And probably all those guys who are not engineers will probably make it much more than what it is. And therefore, why am I telling you this? Because I think that when we actually go back in time and investigate our ancient roots, our knowledge base, our indigenous knowledge systems, we must be careful that we do not conflate mythology and call it itihas to say they are the same. They cannot be the same. They just cannot. It has to be different. Not that mythology is bad, not that history is bad, but we have to be aware of this difference.